Hello, how you doing? It's Thursday and it's a live Q&A here at Digital DJ Tips. Unusual faces here for sure. I've got to try and remember which way to point. It's me, Steve Canueto, and him, Ben Vincent. How you doing, Ben?
I'm all right, thank you.
Good. Hopefully we've got all the technologies working well and people can see and hear us properly. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for joining us. And I can already see a few of your comments coming in now. We're here for the next probably half an hour to 40 minutes today, I reckon. And we're just talking all things DJing. And normally, our glorious leader, Phil Morse, is here taking charge of this slot, as I'm sure you regulars will know. But he is got his children are on half term this week, so the family are traveling, so he's not available. So me and Ben are taking over and answering some questions. It means we might be able to get to answer some different types of questions this week compared to what normally gets asked, but we'll see. So just going to say hello to a few people here. I'm going to put your comments on screen. Mixmaster G, how you doing? Good to see you here. Martin, welcome. Craig, how you doing, Craig? Good morning to you, whichever part of the world you're in. GM, how you doing? Saying hi to Steve and Ben. Good to see you. We've also got Maurice, Germany DJ Slackster Miller. Wow, that's a handle and a half. You're not going to forget that one, are you? Good to see you here. Benedict, how you doing? Right, we've got loads of you guys and girls coming in the comments and saying hello. And we're live on Facebook across all of our platforms, our main Facebook page on Digital DJ Tips, but also Global DJ Network group and our Student Hub group as well. So wherever you're watching on Facebook, welcome. And also on YouTube as well, and also on Twitch. So good to have you all here. Now, those of you who are regular viewers to this, there's a couple of rules, aren't there, Ben?
There is indeed.
To help us to be able to filter out questions, because these live streams get very chatty, and you guys and girls are always helping each other out in the comments, which is brilliant. But in order for us to be able to make sure that we can see your questions, because this is a Q&A after all, you have to follow a little bit of a rule. And I'm going to introduce, by means of an overlay, I'm going to introduce Phil to remind you of how to do this. Okay, let me see if I press the right button this time. 1 second. Where is he? Hey, there he is. So, thank you very much to Ivan, who made this little poster for us, which Phil has in the HQ. And if you want to ask a question on the stream, please put #ask before you ask the question. And the second rule is that you only ask once. If we see you spamming the chat, asking your question time and time again, we won't answer it. So #ask is what we need you to put so that we can see what questions you've got coming in. So cool. So we're going to let a few of those questions come in whilst we're having a chat. Ben, what's oh, hang on. I've just
where have I gone?
Hang on a sec. Hold up. I hit the wrong button there. So 1 second. Let me get you back, Ben.
Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Yeah, 1 second. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah,
this is me not knowing what keys to press here in order to stop things from changing. How do I get a hashtag in my search box? This is me asking the first question on the whole live stream. This is bad, isn't it? Right. Okay. I'll be with you shortly. Ben, how's things going with you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. I was gigging at the weekend. So that was my last gig for a little bit because I got a little baby on the way due, well, any day now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've done my last gig now.
Cool. This is the exciting news from Digital DJ Tips HQ. There's going to be a new Digital DJ Tips family member soon coming to Ben and his wife Hannah and daughter Robin. You're going to have an addition to the family. So I hope all that goes well. All right, cool. Let's get into a couple of the first questions that have come in. So we've got one from Jermaine, which is actually less of a question, more of a comment. Jermaine says, just want to say thanks to Steve. The baby scratch lessons you taught me has fixed the errors that I was making before. Okay, thank you, Jermaine. So Jermaine is one of my students on the Scratching for Controller DJs course. And yeah, it's a good point, actually, that this particular Q&A, if you've got any questions about scratching, or about mixing house music or playing house music sets, about live streaming, about the world of nightclubs. That's a lot of my background and my particular expertise. Ben is a real expert on technical setups, mobile DJing, event DJing, pub gigs, that kind of stuff, Ben, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of more I'd say open format. I don't think I'm fully
Mm-hmm.
open format, but I'm mainly kind of classed as open format. So yeah, the bars that I DJ is kind of like R&B, funk and soul, anything from the 80s, 90s, noughties, and just party music really. That's
Yep,
my area.
cool. All right. Okay, so we've got a question here from DJ Big Woo. It says, and he's using hashtag ask. That's why his question's getting answered. Remember that, folks. Is there a way to see the beat grid next to the track in Serato like it shows on Rekordbox? Yes, there is. And the weird thing about the beat grid in Serato is that it won't show unless you've actually got sync of some description enabled in Serato. So even though the grid is on it, Serato, because Serato users, I'd say there's a higher proportion of Serato users who are quite purists who don't necessarily like use beat grids or use sync or anything like that. So the default view of a waveform in Serato would be that it doesn't have beat grids on it. You can see your beats on your waveform, obviously, but it doesn't have those little line markers that we're used to seeing in other software. But if you want them to show, then if you just enable simple sync, then they will show up for you. So hopefully that helps you, DJ Big Woo. Daniel Jenkins has kind of got the point here of doing hashtag ask, but didn't ask a question. So, so if there was anything that you wanted to ask Daniel, please do make sure you follow up. Okay, so this is part of the skill of doing these live streams is to be able to scan the questions very quickly before putting them up on the screen, and
Must be a quick reader.
to find ones that are suitable. Okay, right. Ben, you can answer this one. Can you do a vinyl style power off slowdown on a track on a Rekordbox controller? So this is not quite the break effect. This is the long, slow slowing down of.
Oh, so you mean when you switch your vinyl off and it goes whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that. I use a DJ 1000. So there's a little knob in the right hand corner which you can switch on and off, and it's a technique I sometimes use in my gigs as well, especially when I'm changing sort of like from one genre to another. I just have a nice little kind of go whoa, and then it's a little knob on the top right hand corner of the DJ 1000. It is internally in the settings as well.
Yeah,
I can't remember what the name of it's called, but it's very obvious what it is.
It's the break stop adjust. So so basically it's adjusting how long it's going to take for the deck to stop or to come to a stop once after you hit the stop button, because in its default kind of mode, which is where it's at its tightest, if you hit stop on the deck, it stops immediately. If you have it to the highest amount, then you hit stop on the deck, and effectively what that's done is it sort of switched the power off on the deck, which is like replicating that old vinyl trick, as Ben was saying. And then so the virtual deck will start to slow down gradually from that point. And there's all sorts of settings in between that sharp cut and that super slow one that you can use. Quite a common way of using it is if you've ever seen any of James Hype's mix transitions, where he gets like a super fast loop, which we rebranded as the Hype loops when we did the James Hype mixing skills DJ course. So he gets a loop that is running super fast, kind of making like a buzzing sound, and he will hit the start and stop on his deck, and it goes makes that noise, and that's by having it probably at about 30% on the start stop, so that he has it set so that if he hits the stop button, it's going to be about 1 beat before it gets to the end, and then 1 beat to kind of get back up to the start again. So so that's how you do it. Thank you for that question, OSF42. Also, don't forget, if you're enjoying this, please do give us likes, thumbs ups, and reactions. We see them popping up on the screen here, and it's good to get feedback from you all. Ben, have you seen another question? You got any tips for a question?
Yeah, I did see one. Unless you want to try and put it on his screen, it was from Craig.
Yep.
He
Which
was
one?
just asking for some ideas and confidence for mixing indie tracks.
Yep. It's now on
That'll
the
be the one.
screen. It's a big question, so it's covering us up. How you doing, Craig? Yeah. Can you give us some ideas and confidence for mixing indie rock tracks? I'm also still trying to work out what's best to do with song selection for a mixtape. I don't just want to go on Beatport and pick 10 to 20 random tracks that don't mean anything to me. I also don't want to pick fully well-known tracks either, maybe a small few, but not all. So there's kind of two questions there. Ben, have you got any tips for mixing indie rock tracks?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this is just my personal take on when I used to do indie rock nights. Was I would sort of try and find a tedious link, if that makes sense. So because obviously you can do all the usual stuff like finding, mixing, finding the right key and the right tempo and stuff. But I always found with like rock music and indie stuff was just to kind of just throw them in. But then that's when I first started DJing anyway, so it was always just chucking them in. But I'd always try and find like a tedious link. So you could go from like the Nirvana, for example, then you go to the Foo Fighters because obviously the Dave Grohl link. Or you could go to Hole because it was Courtney Love and so on. And I kind of like would link them that way, and kind of they do sound like musically kind of like similar, especially Nirvana and Foo Fighters because it's Dave Grohl. And then also you find them nice tracks that kind of just have that nice ending where they kind of like just let the guitar kind of fade out with a bit of reverb, whatever it's called, and then you can then you get one with a nice drum loop, a drum to come in. And I have been playing around with like myself personally trying to like make drum intros and stuff. So I was been playing around with trying to make one for like Blur Song 2, just with the drums and keep it looping. And so that's
And how are you
it.
making your drum loops? Are you kind of doing that in your DJ software, just looping a particular
No, I
part?
was using Serato Studio for that one.
Uh-huh.
Just trying to like tinker with it. I'm not a music producer in the slightest, so it's kind of like all kind of like new to me, kind of like trying to
Right.
tinker with it. But just making drum loops and so I can extend it and maybe trying to use Ableton as well to warp it stuff because obviously you've got the issue of human drummers in a rock band. They're all pretty much human drummers, so trying to keep them in sync,
Yeah.
I find it difficult. So
the thing is with mixing rock music is that you can go, if you're playing dance music sets and you're generally playing dance music, you can of course go down the route of trying to create a club or dance version or a dance mixable version of the track, which is what Ben's talking about, where you're kind of reproducing the track and turning it into a dance track with a like beats intro and a beats outro and that kind of stuff. But that is fairly advanced. If you just want kind of basic mixing tips for being able to mix indie rock tracks, unless you're like Ben said, there are kind of lucky parts at the end of the track where there's just a sustained guitar stab and there's beats at the beginning. Most of the time, like you won't necessarily have kind of mix in, mix out points like you would have on dance music. So the thing is just to keep it simple. Don't worry too much about beat mixing, especially long beat mixing. Just use the technique of just dropping into the next track. But always respect that one beat because rock music's just as much got an underlying danceable rhythm as any other music. Just respect that one beat so that if you are coming out of one track, when you drop into the next one or you cut into the next one, you cut out as it would go into the one beat of the next phrase or the end of the track, and then into the first one beat of the next track. So you're kind of keeping that body clock of the music, which is what Jazzy Jeff calls it, by the way. And by the way, we've had amazing feedback on our Jazzy Jeff DJ course, which we recorded at the end of last year and we just recently released. Jazzy Jeff's How to DJ Right. In fact, I'm just going to come back to the second part of Craig's question. I'm just going to show you guys and girls. This is me. If you're interested in having a look at the course, it is here on the homepage, digitaldjtips.com. And this is all the information here about the course. There's a full intro video and everything that's covered. It's a full curriculum course, really amazing course that we made with, let's face it, an absolute legend in the DJing game. It's done really well and we're getting lots of great feedback. So if you haven't had a look yet and you want to learn how to mix all genres of music, because he plays yacht rock, he plays funk, soul, hip hop, jazz, house, and the way that he seamlessly moves between all of these genres is really slick. And so once you learn those techniques, you can apply those to anything. So thanks, Craig. We've got a lot of other questions, so I'll see if we can come back to the second part of your question. Benedict says, Steve, what make and model of IEM, which is in-ear monitors, do you use? I'm thinking about getting some to hear the mix better and protect my ears. So this is, what do you use when you're DJing, Ben? Do you use like normal DJ headphones?
Yeah, I've got, hang on, I'll just grab them actually, just a pair of,
We're live here, folks. This is how we do it. I haven't got a big room full of DJ gear that Phil has, so I haven't got all the props.
Yeah, they're completely battered now, but they're mine. They're just a pair of Sony's. I prefer the over the head. I've got these, which are Sennheisers, but I honestly I do struggle with them, kind of, because I like that it twists and I can put it on the shoulder. Yeah. So that's just my preference. I struggle with these ones.
So yeah, so Ben doesn't use in-ear monitors. Part of the reason for that is that Ben, when he's DJing, has got a separate place outside of his house, which is the shed. So if you've seen any of Ben's live streams, you'll know that he plays live from the shed. So he can probably make a bit of noise in there. But when I do my live streams, I can't make any noise in the house because there's other people in the house, and I like to have the music really loud. So I use in-ear monitors, which are the type of headphones that you see, when you see musicians and bands playing live on stage. These are the types of monitors that they use so that they can get the feed directly into their ear without it being sort of colored or ruined by the atmosphere and the echoes and things like that. I use these, and also James Hype uses ones very similar as well. So these are actually Shure SE846s. Now they're not cheap. These were about $1,000, but they last. I've had this pair for 8 years, something like that, and they're still absolutely perfect, going strong. The sound quality is amazing. So these are the ones that I use, but the Shure SE535s are also very good. They're much less expensive, and James Hype uses those ones as well. So it takes a bit of getting used to DJing with in-ear monitors because it shuts off the outside world completely. The main thing that you need to get used to is to be able to fully mix inside the headphones, because it's too much of a pain to keep putting them in and taking them out and checking your monitors if you've got a speaker in the room. It's just too much of a pain. So I kind of leave them in, but that means that I'm also listening to the master output through these as well, and the cue. So that can get a little bit confusing. So you need a bit of practice with that. But it's a way of being able to DJ at home and play your music really loud and record DJ sets on your own, just standing in your DJ room or whatever without disturbing other people in the house. So they're the ones that I use, Benedict. Thank you. I'm going to just see how we're doing for general comments, because I've got the comments what do you call it, filtered here for the hashtag ask. So I just want to say hello to a few people who are here live. Morris, DJ 9 Iron, Oleg, P Hines, Treo, Philip Tan, loads of familiar names here. Good to see you all here. For those of you not been here before, this is the Thursday live Q&A that we do here at Digital DJ Tips. Normally, taking charge of this is Phil Morse, who is our founder and chairman, and he's also the author of Rock the Dance Floor. And this basically teaches the 5 key areas of DJing success, which is gear, music, techniques, playing out, and promoting yourself. Yeah, all of our training courses are all built around this, and we're here twice a week helping you out at this time. Tuesday, we do Tuesday Tips Live, and this is the slot for the Thursday Q&A. And it's myself and Ben, we both work here helping you out today. Right, let's get back to some more questions. Thanks, there's lots of questions coming in. So James says, what's the best way to add a synth or two? You get potentially getting a bit greedy here, James, to a 2-channel mixer. Can I preview the instruments through the queue? So with a 2-channel mixer, this is 2 channels that you've got available to you, but you potentially have more than 2 inputs. And this would be determined by whether you've got a switch at the top of the channels. So depending on the controller that you've got or the mixer that you've got, If you've got a switch at the top of the channel, which switches, say, for example, between USB, which would be your DJ software, and line in or phono, then you can channel your synth into the line in input. And you can switch to that so that one of your channels becomes the synth. And if you do that, that channel will also go through the queue as normal. But you can't. But you're only ever going to be able to mix two sources at one time. Ben looks like he's going to show you what we're on about here. He's just got a piece of kit.
Yeah. But also on mine, this is the DGM 450. You probably answer this a little bit better than me, but you've also got a third sort of input. I don't know if you can put a synth in that. If you can see it on the camera, it's just
which is the auxiliary input.
There.
Yeah,
the auxiliary. So obviously I can use a computer, computer line in
auxiliary,
and return auxiliary. So perhaps
so Ben's right. Quite often you could have an extra channel. So even though you've got two DJing channels, you might have an extra channel which could be mic and auxiliary. And if you've got that little AUX, that means that somewhere on your mixer is an input which you'd be able to put your synth through. So hopefully you can give that a go, James. Okay, just having a look down our hashtag ask questions. Remember, if you want to ask a question, please use hashtag ask. Sayan, I'm seeing your questions. We also on Facebook and YouTube, we will answer your questions. Anything that doesn't get answered, we'll make sure that we answer you in the comments afterwards. But they're kind of not really about DJing, but I do see what you're saying and would like to help you out. So we will get to you. Ben, do you have any experience with powered USBs and linking a bunch of devices to a computer?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so this is Euronation, who says, I find some cameras don't work when I live stream because they don't get enough power.
Yeah, I've had that issue with mine as well. Even though I have tried powered ones as well, powered USBs. It just, for some reason on my stream computer, hooking them all up, it really just doesn't seem to like it. So it depends on how many cameras. I've just settled with 2 cameras, and that's been fine for me. So I just have the one above, and then this one here that just faces me, and that's just seems to be enough for my PC. Like I said, I have tried powered USBs. It just doesn't seem to be liking it much. And for DJing as well, I've had sort of similar issues. I've used powered USBs for that because I used to have quite a bit of a modular setup. That's what I used to use quite often, was with the 2 with all these the tractor controllers there, the X1s, and then I had an F1, and I had this and that, and I had little controllers for this and ones with platters. It just got too much, even with powered. So yeah, just have a look. I'll probably just have a look at your setup for your streaming, and just, do you really need that camera?
Yeah, and also maybe the actual settings of the streaming as well. Maybe you're trying to actually broadcast at too high quality. If you actually drop it, you might find that you're trying to stream in 4K or 1080, but you could drop it down to 720, and that might help you. And also just try connecting the cameras maybe directly to a computer if you can. If you've got a couple of USB slots on your computer, try the cameras directly into those and use the hub for other less important things, and see if that helps as well. Okay, Dirty Jokes fan. I always love love seeing this name. How you doing? It says, big up. Are motorized jog wheels a fad? Or if sales are resoundingly good for the Rev 7, more trickle down coming on the next generation of controllers? So we don't know this for certain, but motorized jog wheels have been around for quite a long time. If you think of the Newmark NS6 and the NS7, Mark 1, 2, and 3, and then the Denon motorized versions of the SC5000 and the SC6000, they've always been kind of bubbling around, and they're popular. And then of course, for me, what is the best motorized controller, which is the Rain 12 and the Rain 12 Mark II. So they're not a fad. They've been around for a long time. And then of course, from a controller point of view, the Rain 1 was probably the most successful recent controller that's had it, and that sold really well. And I think if you you're saying here, oh, could the Rev 7 change the game here? To me, I think the Rain 1 and the Rain 12s, but the Rain 1 specifically in controllers, that changed the game to the point where Pioneer felt, right, we've got to do something about this. So I don't think that they're a fad. I think that there are always going to be a section of the DJ community who just like that feel, that vinyl feel of the deck moving. And there are a lot of DJs who are getting into DJing or getting back into DJing who were into it back in the vinyl days and just love that feeling and will pay for that. You know, the Rain 12s are expensive. The Rev 7 is expensive. The Rain 1, you know, is fairly expensive as well. So they'll pay for that feel. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you guys in the comments will be having a chat about this. We can't see all of the comments here. I'm looking at the hashtag Ask ones at the moment, but yeah, there definitely will be more motorized jog wheels and other controllers. Are you a fan of motorized jogs, Ben?
I like the idea of them, and because you know I've got vinyl turntables, but I've never had much experience with actual motorized jogs themselves. Because I've got a DDJ 1000, obviously that which doesn't have one. My CDJs don't have them either, no. So it's something I haven't had much experience with them, but I'd like to have a go with them. You know, especially from using vinyl in the past.
Yeah, it's good fun, especially if you're into scratching. I mean, I would say that you know, these companies are trying to, you know, their marketing is very clever. They're trying to make you think that if you want to do any performance related stuff, or you want to learn to scratch, or you want to be an open format DJ, you've got to have these motorized jog wheels, and that is actually not true. You know, my course Scratching for Controller DJs teaches mostly on a DDJ 1000, which is the same jog wheel as CDJs, and you know, these jog wheels don't spin. They don't turn at all. Well, they turn obviously, but they don't spin under their own steam. They're not motorized, and you can scratch and perform just fine on those things. So it does come down to a kind of personal choice. The Rev 7, the Pioneer Rev 7, which is, you know, kind of released but not out there, I don't think yet, is really amazing. I had a chance to have a go on it when we were filming with Jazzy Jeff. Opie from Serato turned up with one of the pre-production units, and we plugged it in and started scratching, and it's great fun, and it feels amazing coming from, you know, someone who comes from the vinyl background. Jeff just got on it and started scratching immediately and started DJing immediately like it was a normal setup. There was no kind of learning curve. So it's a good product, and I hope that it does spark further innovation in the industry. Thanks for that, Dirty Jokes fan. Okay, Ben, I'm going to put this one to you because I reckon it would be quite a good answer. What song do you wish you could delete from your library, but you can't due to mixes, or you can't due to you're always going to need it?
Christina Aguilera, Dirty.
You just knew it immediately.
Yeah. It needs to be retired. I've just, because I DJ in like poppy kind of bars, and it's just one of them songs that people always kind of ask for. Same with Beyonce, Crazy in Love. But
that's one that you particularly are not a fan of and would be happy to never.
It's just getting a bit long in the tooth now. It's been 20 years.
Cool. It's probably a good question we should ask on our socials. Actually, that'll be another one that gets a lot of.
Get Lauren to write that down. I think should be watching.
Okay. So I'm just having a look for.
I don't have. It's not a question, but something just popped into my head. You know, we're talking about synths and adding them to a two-channel controller. Obviously, it was just whirring around my head. You maybe use a mixer, you know, a little live PA mixer as well. Obviously, because you've got the connections to put it in. Whereas the back of my DJM hasn't really got the connections to RCA. So if you've got if it needs bars or anything, or I would probably use a live mixer. Just adding to that.
Yeah, very good idea. As an external mixer, right?
I've got one. There's one over there somewhere.
Okay, so this is a question effectively about live streaming, because that's what we're doing right now. Technobeat TV says, this might sound a little redundant, but how do you do the comment overlay, like what you're doing right now, reading this question? I actually want to see my friends' names of the request tracks on live. So we're using a piece of software called Ecamm, but this also exists in OBS as well and other live streaming software, including Restream, where basically you get a live feed of the chat to the various different places you're broadcasting to. So I can see it on my screen now, all the comments, and it tells me whether it's coming in from YouTube, which this one is, because you can see the little YouTube logo there, or whether it's Facebook or Twitch or whatever. And they're all in a list, and you can just pick them up and drag them on as a little overlay. So it's one of the features of live streaming software. Pretty much, I think pretty much all of them allow you to do chat overlays now. So that's how it's done. Right, any other questions that you're seeing, Ben? I've got a few here. Okay, got a scratching related one from Philip Tan. So at the beginning and end of a chirp, should the needle be in the silence behind the sample we're scratching, or should we be inside the sample? So first of all, the needle is obviously a retro reference related to the actual, position of the needle on a vinyl record. But really what we're talking about here is the playhead. It's like where you bring the sample back to when you're starting a chirp. And simple answer to your question is you need to be in the silence, because part of the chirp is the silence between, basically that silence where there's nothing, and then the start of the scratch sound. That kind of switching from silence to a sound is part of the chirp scratch. And then when you bring it back, it's about closing the fader as you start to bring it back, which creates the little twittering bird sound. So it's a bit tricky to give kind of scratch, to give detailed answers to scratch technique questions. But Philip, in answer to your questions, yeah, you should be in the silence, not inside the sample. Good question though. Okay. Just going through more of your questions here, people. Okay, so this is from You Don't Like My Music, another one of the amazing names that we have from some of our regular community viewers here. He says, Steve, as a mastering engineer, what do you think of LANDA? Well, first of all, I'm not a mastering engineer. So those guys spend many, many years locked in dark dungeon studios learning the craft of music mastering. What I've learned through producing mixtapes and compilation albums over the years is a very quick way to get mixes sounding professional without needing a mastering engineer. So the reason why I might be asked this is because I teach the Pro Mixtape Formula course, which is one of our courses which teaches you how to record and also edit and master mixtapes to professional standard, and also teaches you how to be able to do it without stopping if you make a mistake, and how to fix those issues that happen during mixes with EQ or if you fluff up a mix or that kind of stuff. But part of that process is mastering, which is where typically you apply a limiter to the mix at the end. You level it up, get it nice and loud, then apply a limiter to get it sounding super loud and professional. And there's a kind of manual process that you can go through there using various different tools within Audacity or Ableton, depending on what you're using. But the question here is, what do you think of LANDA? So if you don't know what LANDA is, I'm actually going to go to a browser and show you. He says confidently. Let's see. How's this worked? Yeah. Okay. This is LANDA's website. So this is aimed at music producers, and it says LANDA is the place to create, master, and sell your music. So as I mentioned, typical mastering engineers are sitting in very, very expensive studios. They take your track, put it through the desk, apply all kinds of really detailed processes of compression and limiting and multiband compression and EQ to basically get your track sounding as good as possible, and to be able to get it to a state where it's ready for you to upload, whether it's to SoundCloud or whatever, or to actually release. So, for example, like Spotify or what have you. So these guys are expensive, and the places that they sit in are expensive as well. So you can find mastering engineers online that will master a track for you, probably for £100, anything upwards of £100 or $100. But LANDA's promise is that you upload your unmastered track to the service, and then you apply a few different parameters, and it just processes it and masters it for you using AI. And then it gives you a kind of version, a mastered version, and then you can tweak it. You can choose a couple of different little options if you're not happy with how it's done it. But basically, it gives you a mastered version of your track for, if you just went in there to do it as a one-off, I think it's like $5 or something like that. And it's not very much to join per month. Let me just have a look. Yeah, it's like is like 10 euros a month, something like that, to join it, and you can master as many tracks as you want. And it's very, very good, especially because it's aimed at producers who are just doing 3-minute tracks, but you can put a 1 hour mix, a 2 hour mix, whatever you want in there, and it will master it and make it nice and loud and good quality sounding for you. So it's really good. And I actually use LANDA quite a lot to remaster old vinyl tracks. So I've got, recordings or rips of vinyl tracks that I can't get digitally anywhere else. And just sending them to LANDA, it's just like they've been remastered, and it's worth it just to get those tracks sounding as kind of modern, loud, and as crisp as the tracks that you're playing alongside them. So yeah, we do recommend it. Ben, what's happening in the comments?
Well, there's so I'm only on Facebook. I've only got Facebook
Mm-hmm.
open on mine, but there's one from Chris Hurton. I don't know if you can find that one on your screen.
Yeah, let's see if search works. Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, I just want to
looking for
say
some tips
quick hello actually to an old friend of mine from the school days who's got in touch, Craig Purvis, who got in touch. How are you, Craig? Good to see you. And Craig Parry also says, I highly recommend the Pro Mixtape Formula. Steve and Phil do a good job with that course. He's saying, I hope it'll assist me to get some mixtapes done. So thanks for that feedback, Craig. Sorry, Ben, what was the name again?
Chris S. Hurton.
Okay, I found it. The search is brilliant in this. I'm really loving this. Right, okay. Cool.
So it's probably a bit more for you on this one. I help a little bit, but it's probably more for you. So yeah, just asking for any tips on mixing soulful house, vocal house, as he's got into the habit of beats and outros with this genre. So yeah, do you have any tips?
Yeah. So this is kind of as a house music fan, even though I teach the scratching course, like most of my DJing life has been playing house music, and I'm a fan of house music, and I'm a fan of soulful house songs, but also quite long kind of tracky type tracks or deeper stuff where the tracks can be like 6 minutes long, and you like them, but like the experience of DJing with that kind of music sometimes can be a little bit boring because you're kind of like waiting for 5 minutes for it to get to the end of the track. Or you feel like you can't apply quick mixing techniques, or you can't apply, you can't cut into the track halfway through because it would ruin the structure of the song or something like that. So I do know what you're talking about here. And it's a trap that a lot of house DJs fall into, which is where you're just using those intro and outro beats as the place to mix in and out of. And it can just get a bit dull and a bit boring. What I'd say is that over the last, 5 to 10 years, with the sort of cultural shift in people's attention spans, depending on the environment that you're DJing in, if you're playing in a sort of real like heads, people who are really into their soulful house music, and you're DJing in a club like that, you don't really want to be going in there and DJing like James Hype with that music. It just doesn't suit it. And the people that you're playing to want to appreciate the full tracks and want to listen to the full tracks. But if you're making mixtapes or you're doing live streams, people's attention spans are less for sure, and you can get away with more quick mixing styles. And what I tend to look for in tracks, especially soulful house. So let's take it, for example, that you've got a song, a soulful house song. they still tend to follow the same formula as most pop music, which is verse, chorus, you know, maybe a bridge, chorus, outro. But there's repetition usually. It's very rare that you've got like, you know, a kind of story running through it that you have to maintain. Point being that like once you've had maybe the first verse and the chorus, or maybe the second chorus, you don't need any more. You don't need to have that third breakdown. You don't need to have that fourth chorus. Like people have heard enough. So look for parts of the track after, say, the second chorus, where there might be a bridge or some part where you might be able to mix out. Now it might only be short. It might only be 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars, something like that. But look for a place to create loops. That's what I do. So if the track is, you know, say it's a 7-minute track and it's got about 3.5 minutes through, it's done kind of, you know, verses and choruses, I've had enough of it, and there's a little 8-bar bridge, I'll put a loop on that 8-bar section and create an active loop, which you can do in Recordbox and you can do it in Serato as well, which means that when it reaches that point, it will automatically start looping. So it won't play out the end of the track. It just automatically starts looping that section. And then you created a new outro in that area with that loop. And then I can use that to mix out into my next track. So yeah, try not to be too precious about the structure of tracks. Look for those little bits where you can create your own outros would be my tip there. Anything else from you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same thing because I come from when it comes to house music stuff, I'm more streaming. So yeah, from, you know, for people's attention and things like that. So yeah, looping is one thing that I do. Another one would be to already edit the song down. You know, I really do enjoy using Serato, and I say it all the time. I enjoy Serato Studio because I can get to just chop it up. And I used to do it a lot in my shed streams for here. I would just make the song shorter, so I didn't have to worry about it. But you know, for Serato users, if you've got Serato, is it Serato Flip? I'm not a Serato user, but I know Flip. Is that the one where you can
Yeah,
make it so it kind of like jumps to certain sections already? So because you could set hotkey points up to the bit you want to jump to, or you could pre-record it in Serato Flip, if that's another thing. So it's automatic, just shortens, you know, so it shortens a song for you.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it basically creates a new arrangement by jumping to cue points and stuff. It's a very cool feature. If you've got Serato, you should have a look at that. Okay, so I can't believe we're 45 minutes through. We said we'd only do about half an hour or 40 minutes, Ben. But thank you to everyone who's here and asking questions. It's me, Steve Canueto, and I can never do this. Him, Ben Vincent, covering for Phil, who's off this week. But we're here every week at this time doing a Q&A about DJing, anything that comes to mind that you want to ask about. We're here always at this time. So I'm just having a look at a couple of other questions here where hashtag asked has been used. And DJ 9iron, this is referring to the question we had earlier on about the break effect or the slow deck stop effect. It says, do you know if Denon has anything for the deck start, so the opposite effect? Well, I don't actually know. Some softwares only have the stop, and they assume that your start you're always going to want instantly, which probably, you know, is the default way. So I think that Denon only has a deck stop, but if anyone can help DJ 9iron with that in the comments, or maybe you already have, off the top of my head, I don't know. This is the sort of thing that Phil would know, right?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm not a Denon user, so
cool.
Unfortunately, I can't answer.
Okay. Andrew G says, do you know why there is such a shortage of some Denon and Pioneer gear? How long will this last? Well, this is, there's shortages of DJ gear, there's shortages of cars, there's shortages of TVs, there's shortages of washing machines, and there's basically supply chain problems across the world with certain electronic components, especially particular chips and electronics that are used in all different types of products, and it's causing backlog of products worldwide. It's all related to the after effects of the COVID restrictions, and well, I mean, in terms of like the movement around the world of goods and services and people now compared to what it was 18 months ago is, I would say, maybe 75% or 80% back to normal. So it feels like, unless there are more restrictions, that's come to an end. But it's how long it's going to take these manufacturers and these industries to catch up, we're not sure. But I'd say probably by the end of this year or early next year, the supply chains will be back to how they were pre-pandemic times. Craig has asked a question, what's happening about Acapellas for You? So this is the website called Acapellas for You, which is the early innovator of basically making available acapellas of, any acapella that's out there was on Acapellas for You, put it that way. But the site, as you can imagine, hosting all these thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pieces of music and thousands of people across the world looking to access them, has always struggled with being able to generate the resources needed to be able to keep the hosting up to date. And also there's probably some legal issues as well, because a lot of the labels are actually starting to get very strict now on these kind of file sharing sites. And because I've seen that Vocala.it as well has got quite a lot of its catalog is now restricted. You can't get, and that's Acapellas as well. So feels like a combination of the major labels getting stricter with the distribution of these files, and also the cost of hosting means that Acapellas for You is currently down and may not be back. So we'll let you know if we hear anything, but it's a shame because it was a real innovator and it certainly spawned thousands of tracks and certainly helped fuel the DJing skill of DJing with acapellas, because you could get acapellas for pretty much anything. Ben, we've got to find a question for you here now. Oh, here we go. There's a direct message to you. Hey Ben, bring back In My Shed. Right. A big fan of your mixing style, as it's a lot like mine. Plus, you're the only one who plays tracks from Block and Crown. Is that meaning anything to you?
Yeah. No, it's Block and Crown's an artist. So if you go on Zip DJ, for example, which is what I use to get a lot of my music, they do a lot of sort of like remixes of pretty much all sorts. So they're really good remixes. So yeah, if you're looking for sort of disco-y kind of remixes, check out Block and Crown. I'd like to bring back the Shed.
Cool. Well, if people don't know what we're talking about here, during the pandemic and the lockdown that we were talking about, in fact, I'm just going to get rid of that comment. Here we go. Should be seeing the screen now.
Also, thank you very much for the nice comment as well, by the way, as well. Sorry.
Cool. We started DJing, doing live DJ sets every Sunday, and we did that for a year and a half. It was either myself, Phil, or Ben, and you can see here on our YouTube channel, if you go to playlists, you've got Balcony Beats with Phil Morse, In My House, which were my ones, and In My Shed with Ben Vincent, which is what we're talking about here. So these were all of Ben's live streams, and they're all here in a playlist that you can see down on the right. So if you want to check out any of Ben's sets or any of mine or any of Phil's, for example, you can do that on youtube.com/digitaldjtips. Okay. We haven't got much longer now. We've gone on longer than we thought we would, but it's always good when we've got loads of questions. So just going to get back to #ask and see what else we can answer here live. By the way, if your question hasn't been answered, we appreciate that you followed the rules and used #asked. We will get to you in the Facebook or YouTube comments sometime afterwards, but we'll do our best to cover them here live.
There's one from Albert Flinth. I don't know if we can. Might be able to answer it. It's not quite digital. It's to do with tone arms and setting them up.
I saw that. I'll put that up on the screen. Albert says, "I've just bought my first pair of turntables and love it. My question is, how do you align the cartridge perfectly on a straight tone arm?"
Yeah, because I've got. Only reason I mentioned it because I've got straight turn on ones there as well, and I know they can be fiddly. So I was just going to just spend like 2 seconds, which is just you got to kind of find the way I was doing it. I'd find the balance, so I would have the needle, and I'd get to set it to 0. I'd make sure it was balancing kind of straight, if that makes, so it was just balancing, and you could touch it and you can move it, and just make sure it kind of, so that sets it at 0, and then you can use your counterweight then to then set the amount of how much pressure you want to put on it, and then you've got the on my decks anyway, you've got, I don't know the words, the terminology for it, but there's obviously a setting where it stops it pulls it to the left and the right, so you're just trying to find the settings. That's it.
Tracking, I think. Yeah, and the thing is, Albert,
I don't know if that's any help.
Also, Albert, like YouTube is definitely your friend on this one. There are there are real specialists in the setting up of vinyl turntables, both from a sort of professional hi-fi point of view, but also for DJs as well. So it's not something, I know for a fact, it's not something that we've covered. We probably should at some point, but yeah, you'll find some good, scratch DJs and people on YouTube who will have put tutorials live for sure. So to give that a shot, and if anyone else in the community can help Albert with this, then feel free to ask in the comments.
Pennies and blue tack.
Yeah. Blue tack for what? For a little coin on the top of it, or?
Yeah, a penny and a coin. Sorry, a coin and a bit of blue tack. But however, it can ruin your vinyl on the needle. So it's some people will be screaming at the screens, going no. But yeah, I sometimes I'd have put a penny on my turntables.
Cool. All right, Jay has asked a good question here. I've downloaded some acapellas that don't sound very loud, and I want to boost them in Audacity. Do I use amplify or normalize? Can you also please explain the difference between them? Okay, so first of all, let's just, for everyone's benefit, explain what's going on here. So Jay has, got an acapella from somewhere, but the actual, volume of the file is not that loud. And Audacity is a piece of free music editing software. If you've never used that Audacity, you should get it. It's free. Let me show you where you can get it from if you've never seen it before, because I'm just going to put it up on the screen there. Hide Jay's question quickly. Yeah, so audacityteam.org is where you can get it from, and you can get it for Windows or for PC, for Linux. It's and free software, and basically you can edit your music in there, and there's all sorts of things you can do with editing. I'm just going to find Jay's question again, put that back up. There we go. You can do structural editing, which is cutting things up and moving things around, but you can change the sound of audio as well, which is what Jay's talking about here. So we were kind of talking about this earlier on with related to mixtapes, which is getting a source file to sound as loud or as comparatively loud as other music that you might play in your DJ sets. And there are two functions which Jay's asked about here in Audacity. One is amplify, one is normalize, and I wouldn't recommend either of those. And they're very similar in what they do, but basically amplify is exactly that. So you can so imagine you've got the acapella in, and its peak level is like minus 10 dB, for example. If you use amplify, then you're bringing the volume of the whole track up. If you're going to use one of these two, I'd say amplify is probably the best one. You're going to bring the whole volume of the acapella up, and so if you bring the whole of it up by 10 dB, then it should be roughly at 0 dB. But maybe there are peaks and troughs in the volume of the acapella that you might want to flatten out and just get it super loud. Because the thing is with amplifiers, it treats the whole sound. It just raises or lowers the volume. So it could be a good starting point for you. It's probably the best thing to try. Normalize is slightly different. Normalize finds the peak level of it and takes that up to a certain level. So if you were to normalize the track to 0 dB, then it will take the peak part, the loudest part of the file, and take that to 0 dB. But if loads of other parts of it are quiet, it's not going to do anything with those. What you could experiment with is a limiter. And you have to be careful with acapellas, because acapellas have peaks and troughs in energy. Sometimes the voice might be a bit like whispery, or sometimes it might be super powerful. But with a limiter, what it does is you set a threshold, and it will find it will that threshold will determine how far it looks. So say if you say I want to limit from 10 dB, minus 10 dB, it will find everything that is 10 dB or higher, and it will pump it up. So it makes the whole thing much louder. It's really useful for DJ mixes and for mastering tracks. But with acapellas, you should probably be a bit careful, because, like I say, if there's a whispery part, it's going to make it really loud. So amplify is the one that you should use of both of those. I changed my mind. I said neither, but then I remembered that we're talking about acapellas here, so they're slightly different to kind of mastering DJ mixes. Or try a limiter as well. Experiment with those two, Jay. Hope that helps. Cool. So listen, we've only got a couple of minutes left on our hour now, so we are going to wrap this up. Let's see if we can do one quick question, and I'm going to see if I can throw it to Ben. Okay. I don't see any more questions at the moment that we're going to get to live here, but Craig says, love to see more of Ben's In the Shed and Steve and Phil doing more streams this summer. Loved it last year and then missed. Has Ben still got his shed? I heard there's a rumor he's upgrading. Well, you're still in the shed now, Ben, right?
Still in the shed, yes, but I have sold the house and we're currently house hunting for a new house. So, so I got I'm talking about sheds. I've got cats fighting on my shed roof. Always fun.
There you go.
I've sold my house and we're now looking for a new house and somewhere for a new shed. So the shed will be staying here. So yeah, I'm on the move.
Cool. Good luck with that. Very quick one for Mark. Says, I picked up an older Pioneer EFX 1000 unit, which is in great condition, but the right jog wheel is sticky. I wonder what club environments or pub environments that's been in. Any recommendations on how to clean it up? So if it was me, I love taking things apart. I always have done since I was a young lad. And so I would very carefully dismantle it and find out where the stickiness is and just clean it, because it's likely that it's had beer or something spilled in it at some point, and it's just sticky because of that. And also, again, it's amazing what tutorials you can find on YouTube about dismantling things.
Yeah. YouTube's it's pretty good for finding things for dismantling stuff. I was following a YouTube one for taking apart an old CDJ 800 a couple of years ago, just to try and changing the power, because it wouldn't turn on. So I got a donor one and put a new power supply in it, and I had to clean all that up because all the buttons were sticky. And
it's and also as well, when you're taking these things apart, if you can find somebody who's had the experience of doing it and has maybe filmed it or taken some photographs, it's always useful, because quite often there's an order to taking things apart, and you've taken out some screws and you can't work out why it hasn't come apart yet, but it's because you should have undone some other bit first or whatever. So to definitely see if anyone else has done it before you spend hours and hours trying to figure it out yourself.
I get some contact cleaner as well. Nothing like WD-40 though, because that's completely the wrong stuff. But you can get contact cleaner, which is meant for switches, it's designed for electronics and switches, so you can spray that on it to clean it. It gets rid of all the muck, and it should be safe enough for any of your switches. Because it is made by WD-40, but it's not WD-40, so no WD-40. Don't do that. But yeah, get some contact cleaner. Watch some stuff on YouTube. Put things in little pots so you know where everything is, and so I'm the same. I'm always taking things apart. In fact, sometimes I'll buy stuff off eBay, if like decks and stuff, because it's easy. It's cheap sometimes for me, and it doesn't bother me too much. I'll go and buy a for parts only, something from eBay and fix it up. It's a bit cheaper. So I've done that with a couple of I've sold them now, but a couple of my old CDJs that have had broken buttons or no power supplies in and stuff like that, and have fixed them up.
Cool, good tip. Okay, so it's the top of the hour now. We do have to say goodbye. As we said, we'll any unanswered questions we'll try and get to you in the comments in YouTube and in Facebook afterwards. So it just remains for Mixmaster G, who usually has the first word on these live streams, so we'll let him have the last word as well. Great job, Steve and Ben. Thank you, Digital DJ Tips team. See you all next stream. So we'll be back next Tuesday at 3 p.m. London, 4 p.m. Central European time, and midday Eastern, where Phil Morse will be back with Tuesday Tips Live, and also we'll be here the same slot this time next week for the Thursday Q&A. Thank you, Ben, for joining me today.
All right. It's
and
okay.
for helping out. And thank you for everyone for being here. We love our community here at Digital DJ Tips. Great to see you all helping each other out in the comments as well. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.
Cheers.
I almost forget. Get good, get out there, and make the moments. I always forget. Phil always remembers, but there you go. Take care. Bye.